guys, welcome back to the channel. I am Samantha and I am the Luxe wife, and welcome back to another Wife Talk Wednesdays. As you see by the title, we are talking about what is hard about marriage. Oftentimes you hear people talk about marriage is so hard, and a lot of people get cold feet from hearing that, and they don't want to get married, and they stay in situations and places that don't serve them. So we are going to talk about what is hard, and if I'm being honest with you, marriage is not hard. Marriage is hard work. That's completely two different things. Hard work is continuing to consistently work at something so that way it continues to run smoothly. So if you're new here, you definitely want to go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as well as hit that notification bell. That way you can be notified every single time I upload a new video. And if you're not new here, welcome back. So guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into today's video. Marriage is hard. That is something I hear all the time, that marriage is hard. And if I'm being honest with you, like I just stated, that marriage is hard work. It's something you have to consistently work at all the time. In the easiest terms, I like to say that, you know, when you go to work or when you get up every single day and you go to work, it's hard work. You know, if you want to say it's hard, then you can say it's hard, but you have to consistently show up every single day. And it's the same thing when it comes to a marriage. You have to consistently show up every single day. Now, sometimes you're not going to be 100%, but that's where your spouse and your partner can pick up where you are not feeling it those days, okay? But you have to consistently work at something, okay? Now, in order to consistently work at something, there are some things that people shy away from talking about, and we are going to talk about them today because it is 100% key in order to make sure you have a long-lasting, successful marriage, okay? When people talk about hard marriage, they shy away from talking about communication. Communication is so important, and it's so key when it comes to a marriage, because a lot of times communication is what causes a lot of friction. One party is not connecting to the other party, and the other person is not responding or communicating in the manner that the other person feels like they should be communicated to, and that's where things get sticky. Things that I've learned over the year is that your spouse does not communicate in the way that you communicate. So sometimes it takes a learning curve to learn how they communicate. Now, that does not mean they have to shut you off or don't talk to you. Those are immature things when it comes to a relationship in a marriage. But when you're in a marriage, you find ways to help grow, and you help someone overcome their ways of communicating in a certain style that does not help the relationship, okay? So if you are the party that says when things get a little bit hectic, you just kind of like shut down, you go into your own space, you don't want to be bothered, typically that's not healthy when it comes to a marriage. If you're single, by all means, do what you want to do. If you are trying to just want to be by yourself, do what you want to do. But when it comes to a marriage, you have to be able to effectively communicate your needs, your wants, your desires to the other person in order to ensure that the marriage does sustain its highest level of love that it should sustain. You cannot expect someone to read your mind, and this goes for us women, because a lot of times we anticipate thinking that our spouse can read our minds. Men are not analytical thinkers like we are all the times. 90% of the time we are overthinking, okay? We're overthinking, and because of that, we fail to communicate what we need because we assume that they already know, and it just becomes something that it should not be, okay? So learn to communicate, learn your communication style. If you feel like the situation is completely heated and I just don't want to discuss it right now, find a debriefing time, okay? Come up with a time between you and your spouse that works best for you. If it's an hour, if it's 2 hours, if it's 3 hours, if it's 4 hours. But nothing should go past a day without effectively communicating each other. It should not be cold shoulders in the house for 3 and 4 days. That life is too short to deal with anything like that. So learn to effectively communicate, and that part of your marriage will not be hard, okay? Next, when it comes to marriage and people thinking marriage is hard, people fail to discuss the comparison game. And yes, even when it comes to marriage, people compare, okay? So you have to understand, I've stated before, and as you guys know, me and my husband have been married nearly 15 years, okay? And a lot of our closest friends haven't even hit the 10-year mark yet, or a 7-year mark. So we are light years ahead when it comes to like wisdom and knowledge and things of that sort when it comes to marriage. So therefore, it could be some sticky situations where your friends are looking at your marriage and saying, why can't my husband be like XYZ, or why can't my wife be like XYZ? And I promise you, that's not something you want to do, because in our early years of our marriage, we were trying to figure it out, okay? And I've told you guys before, we were kind of like the blueprint because we were significantly younger when we got married. So honestly, we were figuring out our communication style. We didn't have to worry about the comparison game because we were pretty much the only ones married. So we could honestly tunnel our vision on one another. But now that we're older, and a lot of people do get married older, they find themselves comparing themselves to other marriages of 10, 15, 20 plus years, and you just cannot do that. That is a recipe for disaster. Focus on the moment and the time that you're in. And I know it's hard, especially when it comes to like social media and what people are doing in their marriage, or what it may seem like. I promise you, focus on your marriage and what works for you, and please do not play the comparison game. It is a thief of your joy. Just don't do it, okay? The next thing, being open to change. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get married, I want to have children, I want to XYZ, but I think people need to understand that those are a lot of changes that go on when it comes to getting married, when it comes to having children. Those are changes after changes after changes. And not only are you changing together, but you're changing mentally as well. So you have to be able to tailor in your marriage, tailor in your emotions and how you feel about everything, and consistently not only work at your marriage, but also work on you. Everything is not about you. There will be some times, plenty of times, where you have to be complete selfless in order to serve your marriage, okay? You are in a situation, you are in a business, since people like to call marriage a business, where you are serving each other, okay? And it takes work to serve. You have to know the person likes, the person dislikes. You have to know how to be there for somebody. But you also have to know that you yourself have to change as well to be able to serve somebody, and somebody to serve you the correct way. So you got to be open to change. You can't just, that's just how I am for the rest of my life, because that's not going to get you anywhere. You have to be able to be open to change, okay? Another key component about marriage and it's being hard work is parenting comes in phases. It comes in cycles, okay? And early parenting is a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. And that's probably a lot of where a lot of gray areas happen when it comes to like marriages, because they get married and they're trying to figure out marriage, and now they have children, and now they're trying to figure out parenting. Now you have two different parenting styles trying to come together as one. So you're not seeing head to head on parenting, and when you're not seeing head to head on parenting, I can tell you now, you're already not seeing head to head on anything else when it comes to your marriage, okay? When it comes to your love life. So you have to understand that parenting comes in waves. It comes in cycles. Sometimes it's going to require more of you. Sometimes it's going to require less of you. But you have to understand to not let parenting supersede the marriage, okay? It's marriage. You know, hone in on your marriage so that way when you dive deep into parenting, you can tackle it and handle it together. But parenting comes in cycles, okay? Don't let nobody tell you the newborn phase is hard, because the newborn phase is the easiest phase, okay? It's the easiest phase. It's the easiest phase. But when you go from the newborn to the toddler to preteen to teen, baby, It comes in waves, it comes in cycles, and each cycle requires something different. And you have to be able to navigate as husband and wife prior to being able to navigate as mom and dad. You got to be on the same page, discuss it at night, which goes back to my first key component of communication and being able to effectively communicate. But if you can understand that parenting comes in cycles, if you can understand that children have their days, just like as adults, we have our days, baby, you'll be all right. Y'all will be all right. So the biggest component, of course, when talking about marriage and it being hard work, and as I say, in communicating and being selfless, you have to constantly show up, which is why I said it's hard work. You can't decide that I don't want to go in today because it's just not for me today. You have to show up every single day. And I think that's where some people, when they get into the nitty-gritty, that sweet spot of 7 to 10 years, some people, when they get to that sweet spot, because you have to show up every single day, now, because you have to show up every single day, it becomes hard. Instead of working hard to find ways to improve your marriage and see how, okay, I can be there for this person in this way and that way, they take a step back and they stop being there. And that's where the marriage becomes hard. Because when you take a step back and you like, this is just too much, this is just unbearable, I am in the thick of parenting, I have lost myself, it's hard. Because in that moment, honestly, you thought about yourself. You thought about yourself. And as I said, there will be times you have to be selfless. Can you take care of yourself? Absolutely. Can you do things for yourself? Absolutely. But you have to remember you are in a position to serve. You're in a position to serve. You prayed and asked for a marriage and healthy children and your husband. Now you have it. You have to do the work, the hard work to keep it and to keep it intact. Okay? Just because, again, this is where I say comparison, just because social media may make things seem and look one way, you have to be able to focus in on your marriage, okay? When it gets thick and you feel like you get tired, it's time to take a break. It's time to take a step back so that way you can center in the focus on your significant other, okay? Just take a step back and refocus, restructure. It's like a restructuring a business so that way the business can stay afloat and we can remain to be successful, okay? So by all means, continue to show up even when it's hard. Continue to show up because that takes hard work, continuing to show up, and I promise you, again, you will be all right. We're almost to the end, and the last few, this is where things get, they get a little bit askew, and you have to think about the bigger picture. And what I mean by that is things that affect you individually but overall affect the marriage, okay? So things that could affect you individually could be either a word, it could be either a B if you had death in the family. Those are things that affect you individually, but it affects the marriage. Because losing someone, if someone passes away, losing someone, it hurts. It hurts, okay? And there's no way around it explaining it. I know for a fact, I can tell you about the instances of losing someone and still having to show up for my children, still having to show up for my husband. That was hard, and it required hard work for me to continue showing up. If I'm being honest, in the last 5 years, I have lost my grandmother, I have lost my uncle, I have lost my father, as well as another uncle. So my mom has lost 2 brothers. She has also lost her mom, and I have lost my father. And that is a lot on one person. That is a lot. And those things affect me individually, and I had to fight mentally, not physically. I had to fight mentally plenty of days to stay afloat and to continue to show up. Because I know at the end of the day, I'm not the only person in the world that deals with these type of things. I'm not the only person in the world that has to, of course, deal with death. But it is hard. It is hard. And on so many days, I had questions and I wanted to question everything. It was just hard for me. And being able to like consistently show up and kind of shift my energy to making sure that I could be there, obviously, for my children, be there, obviously, for my spouse. It was hard work. It was hard. But those things affecting me only, and I'm not saying the death of my family members didn't affect my husband, but you get what I'm saying. It's just those personal areas of growth that I had to go through and deal with. It was hard. And being able to fight those battles and fight through those battles, and now seeing myself on this side, I am so grateful that I'm able to share with you guys, like, this is real. Like, this is real life. This is what real marriage is. This is not just a depiction of what an imagination of what, oh, I just want everything to be perfect. Everything is not always perfect, okay? It's not always perfect. And you deal with a lot. And while you're fighting to keep your marriage intact, you're fighting for your own sanity. And to ensure that happens, baby, you just have to remember your why. You also have to know you're not the only person. I've been blessed with my husband. I've been blessed with our children. And I don't want anything to stand in the way of jeopardizing any of that. Nothing. Okay? If I get a little down, I get a little down. But that's what I have my family to back me up for. But we keep going. We live to fight another day. Okay? So keep in mind, there are things that are going to affect you individually that could potentially affect your marriage overall, but you have to be able to keep the sanity and keep working hard so that way things continue to go and flow in the best way. And lastly, guys, remember how you got in your marriage in the first place. You got in your marriage because you fell in love with the love of your life. You understood that this person understood what it took and what it takes to be successful as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a spouse. And we can conquer the world. And remember that. Remember your why. Don't let anything come between what matters most. Working hard for something that you worked hard to get, the work doesn't stop when you get it. You gotta keep working to keep at it. You gotta keep working. You have to keep working because that's just so important. When it comes to your marriage and it comes to your love life, it's worth fighting for. It's worth fighting for. The love you have is a once in a lifetime type of love. Your spouse is your spouse for a reason. Cherish that. Readjust yourself in your seat. Focus on whatever it is you need to focus on. But when somebody says marriage is hard, let's put a little umph in your chest and say, marriage is not hard. Marriage is hard work. And if you are not a hard worker, then that's not the position you need to be applying for. I'm sorry. It's just not the position you need to be applying for. But that's it, guys. That is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some gems and some things to take back to your spouse and kind of converse and talk about. If you have any questions or anything you want me to piggyback on, by all means, drop them in the comments. You know that's what the comments are here for. I'm so happy that we have made it to the end of the month when it comes to a wife talk, and I'm so grateful that you guys are on this journey with me. But guys, until next time and until next video, I will see you guys later. Bye.